Știu. Știu.
Știu.
Știu.
Știu.
Știu.
Salut, sunteți la ZF Live, în direct pe zf.ro și pe Alef Business. Eu sunt Răzvan Botea și vom discuta astăzi, în prima parte a emisiunii, despre piața de curierat din România cu unul dintre cei mai mari jucători, Yannick MOOIJMAN, CEO-ul Cargus România. În a doua parte a emisiunii vom dezbate programul de guvernare al PSD și PNL, programul de guvernare pe partea economică al guvernului Ciolacu. Și vom avea această discuție cu Tănase Stamule, care este decanul facultății cu predare în limbi străine de la Academia de Studii Economice din București. Înainte de a trece la prima discuție, să vedem ce avem în ziarul financiar, ediția tipărită de astăzi. O să îl vedem și pe ecran în curând. Articolul principal, meniu de ziar: Guvernul Ciolacu pregătește un program mamut de garanții și ajutoare de stat de 50 de miliarde de euro pentru investiții în producția locală și micșorarea deficitelor. Banii s-ar duce în investiții private în petrochimie, metalurgie și industria alimentară, produse care fac 90% din deficitul comercial la bunuri. Vom dezbate, cum am spus, pe larg programul de guvernare în a doua parte a emisiunii. 4 parcuri eoliene Enel de peste 500 de milioane de euro au primit avizele. Le duc mai departe grecii de la PPC. Ce impact au 5 dintre cele mai mari investiții recente în producția locală, peste 1000 de oameni nou angajați și afaceri suplimentare de peste 1 miliard de lei. Creșterile salariale au reușit să acopere pentru a doua lună rata inflației. Cu bani în plus de la lună la lună, angajații își pot cumpăra o sticlă de ulei. Ce a cumpărat BRD de pensii de 46 de milioane de lei de la BVB, Banca Transilvania, Fondul Proprietatea, Romgaz, Digi și Medlife. Marius Bâcu, de la ferma Cu Omenie, oamenii au început să vină mai rar în magazine și să cumpere mai puțin. Andrei Gheorghiu, CEO Bluetweek: vrem să ajungem la vânzări de 2 milioane de euro la finalul lui 2023 și să dublăm echipa la 40 de specialiști. Intrăm așadar în prima parte a discuției, o discuție, după cum am spus, cu Yannick MOOIJMAN, CEO Cargus. O să avem discuția în limba engleză. Hello, thank you for being here.
Good morning, Osman. Thanks for having me today.
How's Cargus doing?
Cargus doing well. Yeah, actually very well. Last year, 22 was a bit of a more difficult year. I think also our competitors experienced the same, a small dip after COVID and the boost that COVID gave to our industry. But so far, so good. We have had a good, strong year. In terms of revenue growth, we more or less doubled, actually more than doubled the growth compared to where we ended last year. So the first 5 months have been very good for us, especially the first 3 months, where still volumes were picking up nicely or staying at good levels. I would say second quarter has been a little bit more challenging. We have seen the market going down a little bit, but we still have double-digit growth. So that's a very good start of the year. And as they say, when you make the first quarter, you make the year. It's very important.
Yes.
In every industry, but definitely in ours to have a good start.
What's your forecast for the rest of the year?
I would say more or less the same. I would say, our plans are a little higher, but I think around 12% revenue growth on an annual basis would be a good thing to achieve. But we strive for more. That's very clear. And working hard on those things to make that happen.
Which are the next steps for the second half of the year?
Yeah.
For Cargus.
So I just want to also give a little bit of history because I joined the company last year, and we, there were certain things that had to be tackled first. So first thing I had to do was to build a strong team. That team is now in place. I was very fortunate to get different people from with a lot of industry knowledge and expertise to join Cargus. So that has been done, and we also added roles and people in functions that didn't exist. For instance, strategy or revenue management, pricing. So that team has been formed now and started to work together as of February. So team building and actually making sure that the team works the way it should is well on its way. Second priority was to improve service, and we have done an amazing job led by our new Chief Operating Officer, Nello Georgica, actually bringing up service to levels where we have never been before as a company. And, in our industry, normally run between 90 and 100%. We improved service with 3 percentage points. So that's a 30% increase, in fact. And then the third thing we had to do is to make sure that we get paid for the value we deliver. And that's also where pricing and revenue management start to kick in. And that all is in good hands with our new Chief Revenue Officer, also a new role in the company. So that were the things that we had to do. The things that we, in the first, let's say, half of the year achieved, I think the first big one was one delivery attempt. So we have changed our approach in the sense that we do one delivery attempt to the door. And if the person is not home, we bring it to our out-of-home network, which, by the way, was fully created in November of last year, where we went from 600 to 3,000 locations. Why is this important? We believe that this is a very good improvement of the customer experience, because if you're not home, which could be very well the case because we're sitting here in the studio, meanwhile we try to deliver a package. Exactly. Tomorrow you might be in the same studio with a different person. So what we do by bringing it to our out-of-home network gives you the opportunity at the end of the day when you're on your way home to actually pick it up to that out-of-home point, put a point that is the closest to your house. So that was one very important thing, and to do this across the entire network with all drivers executing this to perfection is obviously not an easy task, but we managed due to the performance of the team and the good preparations. Second thing that I would call out is the fact that we introduced a new service, consumer returns. And returns are, increasingly important in, especially in the B2C arena, e-commerce. And so we introduced this service, so now allowing every shipper and every consignee that are doing business together to actually return packages into a very, simple manner, and leveraging and using that same out-of-home network. So actually consumer, goes back to or goes to the out-of-home network, put a location, drops it off there. We provide it from with a baby label, it goes to our center. Their relabeling takes place to go back to the shipper. So this was a very much needed product based on the feedback of our customers. We launched it, and now we're in the process of actually, helping customers to set it up and use it. So these were, I would say, a couple of very important things that we achieved. Now, moving forward, what we're doing is actually building an omni-channel solution. This is something that we're all very proud of because we have been working on it for 1.5 to 2 years. It's very complex, but actually what it means is that no matter how you approach Cargus, whether it's via the phone or online or any manner, we will have the right information on you as a customer, could be consumer, could be shipper, with regards to your profile. So in other words, if you call in as a shipper, for instance, and you want to have information on a particular package, we would pick up the phone, we would know immediately who calls, we would have all the information in front of us, not only of that particular shipment, but of all shipments that are underway, potential claims, other concerns that customers might have. And in that way, we're able to give a much better, faster, and more tailor-made service to our customers. We combine that with actually giving those same shippers insight to how we perform. So we get a whole different level of openness and also commitment and accountability by showing exactly how we have performing, how we're doing, and then have a discussion with the customer. They might see it differently. They might have a different experience on their end. And actually that brings us to, again, that openness, but also, I think, the right discussion about how we move forward working together.
What about the cross-border deliveries? In how many countries is Cargus?
Cargus is currently really active in one other country, and that is Poland. And it was also the first country that we had on the map for different reasons. I think Poland is a strong economy, big economy, with a lot of e-commerce businesses that actually ship to Romania, want to do business in Romania. And so it was a logical start for us. We also have a very good partner that is Polish and lives in Poland that could help us with that. So we have feet on the ground. That means we have salespeople, we have infrastructure, we have feeder movements between Romania and Poland. And that was a good foundation to set up the business, but it's only the beginning. So what we're focused on now is to start business in Germany, in Czech, in Slovakia, in Hungary. We already partner for other countries, but we'll focus on Greece potentially and Bulgaria. And then we're going to take it to the rest of Europe. And we actually managed the two next to each other. So the 7 countries I mentioned earlier, because that is the here and now. And we're recruiting and building infrastructure and product, service. And then we're partnering with a party from somewhere else in Europe. I cannot reveal the details yet. But through that partner, we hope as a next step to get access to every European country. And that's important because what it then allows us to do is to leverage the Romanian customer portfolio and offer these shippers actually access to Europe. And we can help them with growing their business. So there we then in a true partnership. So that is, let's say, the plan for international.
How many employees do you have in Romania?
About 700 on the payroll. And then we have about 2,000 drivers and 500, so this is pickup and delivery drivers, and then about 500 drivers for the truck movements between the different facilities. But these are external parties. We have outsourced the work to, so they're not on the payroll.
Oh, okay. So the total number of the employees that are engaged in your activities?
Engaged in our activities, we're talking about 3,500 to 4,000.
Okay. Maybe if you have a figure, what is the salary of a driver or a courier? You have this figure right now?
Yeah, these are not numbers that we reveal for competitive reasons, but also because it might differ per location, etc. So that are not numbers that we like to reveal.
What about investment plans in Romania in the next years? Maybe investment plans in the next 2 years, let's say.
Yeah, like next year. I cannot share the exact numbers with you yet because we're working on that, but I can tell you what is in focus. So first of all, not surprisingly, most probably, is our out-of-home network. So I told you earlier that in November we made a big move in moving from 600 locations to 3,000. And not only did we add numbers, so the majority, by the way, of that are PUDO locations, so pickup and drop-off locations, which in most cases is retail. Shops that accept and hand over Cargus packages, but we also added lockers to the network, 300 in total. We're now actually doing a detailed study to see whether that network is enough, whether we have the right locations in the right place, given our business, given market potential, and where actually people live. And we want to fine-tune that. You might say, hey, why didn't you do that earlier? We did, but we're actually in the process of fine-tuning this. And we're doing it with new technology methods that will make this, I think, lead to a better outcome. That might lead to a situation where we need to further enhance and grow. And I would not exclude that an important part of that growth would be lockers again, so that we're going to grow the number of lockers from 300 to a new number. But as said, we're working on that. The second thing that we're going to invest in heavily, and actually we started to do that already with a third party from Italy, is to actually take our operations to a whole new level and most probably start changing the way we operate, both internally as well as externally. On the internal side, you have to think about smart algorithms that allocate packages to routes and that help us to optimize the entire network, both when it comes to the line haul as well as to the final mile delivery and pickup network. What it also will do, and this is maybe more interesting for the market and customers listening, is this allows us to really change the way we interact with customers and to take customer experience to a whole new level. Things to think about, for instance, is a delivery window. And that could be as much as an hour or maybe even half an hour. We would also allow the consumer to follow the driver in the last 15 minutes. So as soon as we get close, we would send a message and the customer would be able to follow the driver to get an even more precise feel for when the driver arrives. What it also will do from a customer experience is it will fundamentally increase the number of successful first delivery attempts. So where today we still have situations where the customer is not home, by sharing that time window, not saying we are there between 9 and 5 or 9 and 6, but saying we're there between 10 and 11, we think that percent will drastically increase, and that's good news for both the shipper as for the consumer, and then you don't need to go to the PUDO location anymore. So that are the things we're planning to do, together with options for the consumer to redirect packages to different locations that they want. The ultimate goal is that we allow you as the consumer to choose when you want us to come. At a cost that will be, because that will be also more costly for us. We need to break route, we need to do things maybe not in the most efficient way, but we want to deliver a great customer experience.
Personally, I would pay for this because it gives me anxiety when I see that message. We'll deliver a package between 9 and 5 o'clock, and I'm when because I
exactly. And
yeah.
it's the old-fashioned way of doing business. At the same time, even though lockers and a PUDO network, I think, are the second best solution, I think the very best solution is that you can get it when you want, where you want. And I still think it's a little bit culturally determined. In Poland, everybody has embraced lockers, but in the UK, for instance, not at all. Oh. And the preference is still home delivery.
Why do you think is this difference?
I think it depends on. I think culture is a big thing. To your point, am I willing to pay for it? In Italy, for instance, they did a test with the same type of mechanism, and found out that yes, consumers are definitely willing to pay for it, especially in the big cities, Milano, Rome, and significant amounts, €4 to €5 per package extra. Mm-hmm. I think the other thing is also the quality of the network being offered, as well as the options being provided to consumers. And that needs to fall in its place. And the big question, and I think my crystal ball is as good as any other one's crystal ball, it has to be seen what the consumers will embrace together with the shippers.
How many lockers do you have in Romania?
300 at the moment. Mm-hmm. Yeah, primarily focused on the big cities, and the majority of that is Bucharest.
And to how many lockers do you want to have in, let's say, 2 years?
I cannot answer that question for the reason that I explained earlier, that we're in the process of actually doing the analysis to define our, let's say, best possible network. And then the next question is, okay, what of that do you do with PUDO locations versus lockers? For instance, in the countryside, the volumes are just too low to justify an investment in a locker.
Yeah.
So we need to see that. And then the question is, okay, the big cities, that's clear, I think. But then you get to, okay, mid-sized cities, what do we do there? And I simply don't have the answer at this moment. But that it will be significantly more than 300 if we make a move, that is clear.
Do you have at this moment an investment budget for 2023?
Yeah, we do, but I rather would not reveal that here. But it's significant enough to do all the things that I have been talking about. Because one thing I didn't mention yet, that I really see, I mean, for me, the future of this industry is really about how well you can serve the consumer and the shipper, of course, both. And both are our customers. It's all about choice, convenience, and control. We always talk about the 3 C's. And in order to take that to a whole different level, I talked earlier about what we're doing in the operations, but that is one part of it, because there we're talking about the delivery and how maybe to deal with returns and alternative delivery addresses, etc. There's also the whole part, the commercial aspect of how does the selling process work on the website, how are things offered, how do you go from buying something and an order into a package that's being shipped, etc. And there, I call that the digital roadmap. We're building that at the moment. Is really how we want to think about, rethink the way we interact with customers. And then I'm not only talking about big e-commerce shippers, but definitely about B2B, about C2C, which I think is the next evolution in our business, is the whole C2C community. You have companies like Vinted that recently became a customer of ours that actually sells second-hand goods. So you sell me second-hand goods, and you know Vinted is just bringing us together and organizing the shipment. That is a model that I think will really take off. Not only because people are in you know the current economic situation more tight on money, but also the environment starts playing a big role. If I look at my kids, they are definitely very interested in thinking what their footprint is when they buy something. And you know, from fast fashion, they prefer to go this route and to say, I could get for less money a better piece of a fashion piece that is also from a much higher quality, and the fact that it has been worn by somebody else, I don't care. So that I think will take off. We need to be playing there, and in order to play well, you're back to the 3 C's and the way you organize that through digital, and that's where our investment will be. And also how we will interact with customers at the early stages. How will I seduce you as a shipper to actually work with Cargus? How does that process work? How do I find you? How do we connect? How do I let you set up a contract with us? How fast can you start shipping after that contract is effect? And you know, in the past we were very much used to, you contacted me, I would work on an offer, 3 days later you would get an offer, then you would chew on it, then you would send it back, then we needed to sign the contract, and so on. And before you knew, there were 2 weeks, 3 weeks in between. That is not from today anymore. You should be able to interact with us, you know, share your details, and 15 minutes later you should be able to ship. That is the future. That is how we should do business. And you know, to compare with the business models that are out there already, I don't know whether you are a Revolut user.
Yes, I do.
One of the banks. Well, how long was the setup process? 10, 15 minutes, right?
Yeah.
You share your passport details. They do a background check, and 15 minutes later you are in business. That's the way the world ticks today, and that is also how we want to do business at Cargus.
Okay, I understand you cannot give an exact figure about investment budget, but my curiosity is if you are increasing the investments or decreasing the investments.
Yeah, absolutely. We're increasing because without, budget, we're not able to do all the things I'm just talking about. So absolutely, we're increasing.
From your perspective, as the CEO of a shipping company, do you think that will come an economic crisis?
Difficult to say, but I'm always on the optimistic side. So I don't believe in doom thinking, but at the same time in business you need to be a realist as well. As I said earlier during my intro, we see that the market is slowing down. That's a fact. So with a couple of percentage points, I would say on the volume side. And this is typical thing that happened, I would say, at the end of Q1, second half March, and started to continue. So I think April was definitely not what we expected from it, knowing that you also have always a boost around Easter. May was more or less at the April level, and it's still not the case that things are picking up rapidly in June. Whether that will further deteriorate or not is to be seen. I just read this morning that your new prime minister is planning to invest 50 billion into the economy, an enormous amount.
Yes,
and
tremendous.
Tremendous, yeah, and hopefully that will have its effect. But since B2C and e-commerce is such an important component of our business, you also need the consumer and consumer trust, and they need to be willing to spend money again. And I think that's where we have seen that things drop a bit. But in B2B, the same thing. So it's really across the entire spectrum. But as I said, I'm still optimistic. I think that we might continue at the levels where we're now, and then hopefully it starts to pick up in the fourth quarter. What we have seen, though, is that the predictions from the National Bank when it comes to GDP and GDP growth have been consistently adjusted upward since, I think, October, November of last year. So, that also gives hope that things are moving in the right direction.
Okay, you are maybe as a shipping company the first to evaluate the state of the road transport infrastructure in Romania. How do you assess this infrastructure at the moment?
Yeah.
And what are the perspectives for, 5 years, for the next 5 years?
Yeah. Interesting and good question. I think I obviously, and I told you before we started talking our intro that I just came to the country. I mean, I just started living here and using the roads over the last 9 months. So I have an outsider perspective. It's clear based on what I'm used to, and I can compare to Hungary, the country where I lived before for about 4 years, that there's definitely work to be done. I think the country talks for quite a while about making those necessary improvements. And although important improvements were made, I just drove from the border Timișoara to Sibiu. The most part of that is beautiful highway, even better than in most parts in Western Europe. But then you hit Sibiu, and there it gets difficult. And it gets difficult because you need tunnels there, and tunnels are expensive. But I would really say to the government, use an important part of that 50 billion to start investing in the road infrastructure, because as an indication, my first drive from Budapest to Sibiu took less time than, which was 2/3 of the trip, than from Sibiu to Bucharest.
Yes.
And so that says it all, and that needs to change, because for not only us, because we're serving the business community, but the business community can further improve, and the country can open up and become more competitive and productive versus other countries. by actually making those investments and the improvements that are needed. So where this exactly will land, I don't know, because I'm not behind the knobs influencing it. But I hope that the government will do what's needed to turn this around quickly in the coming years. The only thing I can say is that we as a company, and me personally, with the experience I have in logistics over 20 years, I'm very willing to assist the government in giving feedback, put our view on the table, and maybe help with other businesses to actually form a group that actually gets to a plan that can be executed and that leads to the wanted results. So I would say, and I think the other thing to consider is you have the harbors in Constanza, in the east. That could be a good alternative to some of the harbors, and I'm now talking against my own country, Rotterdam or Antwerp or Hamburg, and approach Europe from that angle. But again, then you need to have that infrastructure. But when you have, I think you can leverage your harbor also better. So it's everything comes together there. And then you also become, I think, more attractive to companies that want to invest in warehousing, etc., and use Romania as the platform to go to the rest of Europe.
So we're closing to the end. My last question would be, if a very good friend of you comes to you and he says, look, I have this money to invest, and give me 3 reasons why I should invest in Romania and 3 reasons why I shouldn't invest in Romania.
I think Romania has an enormous amount of potential. I think it has, I always say I would compare it to Poland. So where Poland was, let's say, 15 years ago, I think is where Romania is today. And we all know what happened to Poland and how fast they grew. And again, they had the same infrastructure problems, by the way, as Romania. And they tackled it and it worked for them. So I think one important reason is the potential. Secondly, I would say what I noticed in my time here and even before when I was already overseeing another business in Romania is the capabilities of people. I think Romanians are hard workers, can be very productive, can work very collaborative. And I have very good experiences in that perspective. And then third, depending a bit what the business is and the needs are, but nowadays nothing goes without technology. There are clear signs that Romania has very good people in the IT sector. There are cities like Cluj that are really booming because of that. So I think that's another real strong asset. So that's on the plus side. On the negative side, I definitely would come back to the road infrastructure, but again, depending on the business, because if you would be in IT and building smart things, that's less of an issue. I would say maybe the speed at which today things are progressing as a country, the potential is there, but you need to have a good plan. And you need to execute to the plan. And I think improvements can be made. But hopefully the 50 billion will do its work. And other than that, I cannot think of a third one. Maybe if I would say sometimes it's difficult to find good people, not because, I was saying earlier, I really believe in the quality of the Romanian workforce. But there has been, and we cannot deny that, a pretty big brain drain. And that sometimes makes it more difficult to find the people. But overall, and I told you earlier, I'm an optimist. So I'm on the positive side, and I would most probably advise your friend to come to Romania.
So you would advise to come to Romania?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, nice. How do you assess the fiscal stability in Romania? Do you think that the fiscal policies, how do you see that matter?
I think so far so good. I mean, we don't have complaints. I mean, there's a need for the country to be very focused on that, to make sure that the incomes they are entitled to from a tax perspective, that those are being met. And in order for that to happen, the business community needs to play ball. We need to be all in and we need to do our thing. And in that respect, that's exactly what we do as Cargus is, first of all, we always adhere to policies set by the government, but we want to be a good citizen. We want to pay our taxes, our dues, and there was an example around CODs, cash on delivery, that the government wanted to have a clearer picture of what are the revenue streams going on in that particular part of the market. And obviously we adhere to it and gave the information required to the government as a good citizen would do.
So to resume the discussion, you're being optimistic about the economy, and you would recommend Romania as an investment.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me today. Really appreciate it.
A fost Yannick MOOIJMAN, CEO Cargus. O să revenim, iată, o discuție despre piața de curierat din România, despre perspectivele unui director de companie, despre cum va evolua și economia românească, dar și, bineînțeles, infrastructura de transport rutier, care este unul dintre cele mai importante lucruri pentru un astfel de business. Vom lua o scurtă pauză de 1 minut și vom reveni în partea a doua a emisiunii cu o discuție despre planul de guvernare al guvernului Marcel Ciolacu, viitorului guvern Marcel Ciolacu, chiar în timp ce suntem în emisie se investește acest guvern. Vom despica firul în 4, ca să zic așa, de unde vin banii pentru investiții. Am văzut, iată, 50 de miliarde de euro care vor veni sub formă de garanții de stat și de granturi. Și vom vedea de unde vor veni acești bani, pentru că toată lumea se întreabă acest lucru. Luăm o scurtă pauză de 1 minut și revenim.
Cum să te asiguri că ai la vârf lideri care cunosc bine piețele de care răspund? Pentru grupul francez Orange, răspunsul stă într-un sistem cu totul diferit față de cel observat în alte multinaționale din telecom, în care liderii sunt rotiți între diferite piețe după un număr de ani și promovează în roluri noi, fără a lua totul de la zero. Ba chiar din contră, un exemplu este recenta schimbare anunțată la vârful subsidiarei din România, concomitent cu cea din Polonia. În centrul atenției sunt 2 lideri bine cunoscuți la București. Succesul avut de UiPath, unicornul tech născut în București, nu doar a pus România pe harta inovației tehnologice la nivel global, ci a creat și o generație nouă de antreprenori care au la rândul lor șansa de a dezvolta companii tech cu impact internațional. Un astfel de exemplu este CubeArc, un startup local demarat de 6 colegi care au lucrat în cadrul UiPath și care până acum au reușit să atragă finanțări de la mai multe fonduri de investiții. Piața de stomatologie este în creștere și atrage tot mai mulți investitori și, mai important, tot mai mulți pacienți. Totuși, cifrele sunt în continuare îngrijorătoare, plasând românii la coada Europei în ceea ce privește vizitele la dentist. Când merg la stomatolog, românii trebuie să scoată mai mulți bani din propriul buzunar, iar când vine vorba de distribuția specialiștilor la nivel de țară, mediul rural este lăsat în urmă. Transformare, acesta este cuvântul de ordine pe agenda lui Silviu Popovici, managerul român care conduce din funcția de CEO businessul PepsiCo în Europa, un gigant cu afaceri de 13 miliarde de dolari în 2022, cam cât tot businessul din producția de alimente din România. Cum va arăta viitorul pentru unul dintre cei mai mari producători de băuturi și alimente, dar și cum au influențat pandemia, războiul și inflația, viziunea de management a executivului care a ajuns anul trecut cel mai bine plătit manager român? Citiți despre toate aceste subiecte, dar și despre multe altele în cel mai nou număr al Business Magazine.